Admiral Jake Morrison stood at the observation deck of the USS Leviathan, watching the distant blue marble that was Earth. The massive ship floated silently in the asteroid belt, hidden from the rest of the galaxy by technology that most aliens could not even imagine. For 15 years, this had been his home, his command, and humanity's greatest secret. The bridge buzzed with quiet activity as his crew went about their daily tasks. Captain Lisa Rodriguez walked up beside him, holding a datapad with the latest intelligence reports. Her face was serious, which meant bad news was coming. "Admiral, we just received another message from the Galactic Council," she said quietly. "The Zephyrian Empire has filed a formal complaint about Earth's trade practices. They claim we're undercutting their mining operations in the Outer Rim." Jake turned away from the window. At 55, he had gray hair and tired eyes, but his mind was as sharp as ever. He had spent most of his adult life preparing for this moment, though he had hoped it would never come. "What exactly are they complaining about?" he asked. Lisa scrolled through her data pad. "They say our mining ships are too efficient. Our workers are pulling more minerals from the asteroids than should be possible with primitive human technology. They want the Council to investigate our operations." Jake almost smiled. If only they knew the truth. Earth's mining ships used advanced gravity manipulators and quantum drills that could extract resources with perfect precision. The aliens thought humans were using simple tools and hard work. They had no idea that every mining operation was actually cover for the construction of the most powerful military fleet in the galaxy. "Any response from the Council?" Jake asked. "The usual. They say it's not their problem as long as we're not breaking any laws. But Admiral, there's something else. The Zephyrians are mobilizing their fleet. Our deep space sensors picked up 200 ships gathering near their home world." This was the news Jake had been dreading. He walked over to the main communications console and opened a secure channel to Earth. President Helen Carter's face appeared on the screen within seconds. "Mr. President," Jake said with a small nod. "Admiral Morrison. I assume you've heard about the Zephyrian fleet movements?" "Yes, ma'am. Captain Rodriguez just briefed me. What's the situation on Earth?" President Carter looked tired. She had been dealing with alien politics for 3 years now, ever since she took office. "We received an official message 2 hours ago. The Zephyrian Empire is giving us 72 hours to submit to their protection and guidance, or face what they call necessary pacification measures." Jake felt his jaw tighten. "In other words, become their slaves or get destroyed." "That's about right. I've called an emergency meeting with the Defense Council. We need to make a decision, Admiral. Do we reveal the Leviathan and the rest of the fleet, or do we try to negotiate?" Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. These men and women had spent years of their lives working in secret, building something the galaxy had never seen before. They deserved better than to hide forever. "Mr. President, with respect, I think we're past the point of negotiation. The Zephyrians wouldn't make this kind of move unless they were confident they could win easily. They think Earth is defenseless. And what do you think, Admiral?" Jake smiled for the first time that day. "I think they're in for a big surprise." An hour later, Jake stood in the main conference room of the Leviathan. The holographic display showed Earth, surrounded by the approaching Zephyrian fleet. Defense Secretary Ryan Blake appeared on the screen from his office in Washington, along with President Carter and several other Earth officials. "Ladies and gentlemen," President Carter began, "we all knew this day might come. For 15 years, we've been preparing for the possibility that humanity would need to defend itself against superior alien forces. Thanks to Admiral Morrison and his team, we're not as helpless as the galaxy believes." Dr. Alex Thompson, the Leviathan's chief science officer, stepped forward. He was a thin man with wild hair who looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. Mr. President, our latest tests show that all systems are operating at full capacity. The adaptive camouflage is working perfectly. Our weapons systems are charged and ready. The fighter squadrons are prepared for immediate launch. What about the other ships? Asked Defense Secretary Blake. Commander Kate Sullivan, who led the fighter wings, answered. The Defiance, Horizon, and Liberty are all in position and ready. For your orders, each ship has been tested extensively. Our pilots have been training for this scenario for years. Jake looked at the faces on the screen and around the room. These people had dedicated their lives to protecting Earth, often at great personal cost. Many of them had families they rarely saw, lives they had put on hold to serve in secret. Mr. President, Jake said, I need to be clear about what we're facing. The Zephyrian Empire has conquered 12 worlds in the past 50 years. Their military technology is advanced, and they have experience in large-scale warfare. But they also have weaknesses. Captain Rodriguez activated another display. Our intelligence shows that Zephyrian ships rely heavily on energy shields and plasma weapons. Their tactics haven't changed in over a century because they haven't needed to change. They've been winning through superior technology, not superior strategy. And that's where we have the advantage, Dr. Thompson added excitedly. Human military doctrine emphasizes adaptability and creative problem-solving. Our weapons and defensive systems are designed to counter exactly the kind of static thinking the Zephyrians represent. Chief Engineer Danny Foster, a quiet man who rarely spoke in meetings, cleared his throat. Admiral, all engineering teams report ready status. The quantum barrier system is operating at 98% efficiency. The kinetic railguns are charged and targeted. The manufacturing bays are producing ammunition and spare parts around the clock. President Carter was quiet for a long moment. Admiral Morrison, in your professional opinion, do we have a realistic chance of success? Jake didn't hesitate. Ma'am, I believe we can not only defend Earth, but we can do it in a way that changes how the entire galaxy sees humanity. The question isn't whether we can win. The question is whether we're ready to step out of the shadows and show the universe what we're really capable of. And if we lose, then at least we'll go down fighting instead of surrendering. But Mr. President, I don't think we're going to lose. The Zephyrians are expecting to face primitive human technology. They're going to get something very different. President Carter nodded slowly. Very well. Admiral Morrison, you have full authorization to reveal the Leviathan and engage the Zephyrian fleet if they refuse to withdraw. God help us all. As the transmission ended, Jake turned to his crew. You heard the President. This is what we've been preparing for. In less than 72 hours, the Zephyrian fleet will arrive at Earth expecting an easy victory. Instead, they're going to discover that humanity has been playing a very long game. He walked over to the main tactical display, where the Zephyrian fleet showed as red dots moving steadily toward Earth. Commander Sullivan, prep all fighter squadrons for immediate launch. Dr. Thompson, I want all defensive systems at full power. Captain Rodriguez, send a message to the other ships. Tell them it's time. As his crew rushed to carry out his orders, Jake looked out at the stars one more time. Somewhere out there, 200 alien warships were heading toward Earth, confident in their superiority. They had no idea that humanity's greatest strength had always been the ability to surprise their enemies in 72 hours. The galaxy was going to learn that Earth had never been as helpless as it appeared. The age of hiding in the shadows was about to end, and the age of shocking the galaxy was about to begin. Fleet Commander Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Fang, watching the small blue planet grow larger on his main screen. 200 of the Zephyrian Empire's finest warships followed behind him in perfect formation. This would be the easiest conquest of his career. Commander, his tactical officer reported, we are detecting only basic defense satellites around the human world. No significant military presence. A few patrol ships, but nothing that could threaten even one of our vessels. Vexstar nodded with satisfaction. His species had conquered dozens of worlds, and humans would be no different. They were a weak race. That had somehow managed to convince the Galactic Council to grant them membership, but they had no real power. Their mining operations in the asteroid belt were barely worth mentioning. Open a channel to the human government, he ordered. Let them know they have one final chance to surrender. The communication system crackled to life. A human woman appeared on the screen. She had dark hair and wore what looked like a military uniform, though Vexstar found it hard to take human military seriously. This is Captain Lisa Rodriguez of Earth Defense Command, the woman said calmly. State your business in our system. Vexstar smiled, showing his sharp teeth. I am Fleet Commander Vexstar of the Zephyrian Empire. Your government was given 72 hours to accept our protection. That time has expired. Surrender now, and your people will be treated fairly under Zephyrian rule. The human woman didn't look afraid. Instead, she seemed almost bored. Fleet. Commander, I'm going to give you one chance to turn your ships around and leave our system peacefully. This is your only warning. Vexstar laughed out loud. His bridge crew joined in. The idea that humans could threaten the Zephyrian fleet was absurd. Human, you have no weapons that could damage even one of my ships. Your entire planet's defenses could not stop a single Zephyrian cruiser. Stand down immediately. Very well, Captain Rodriguez said. You've made your choice. All Zephyrian vessels, you are now considered hostile forces. Earth Defense Command out. The transmission ended. Vexstar was still chuckling when his sensor officer suddenly started making urgent noises. Commander, I'm detecting massive energy readings from the asteroid belt. Something very large is powering up. Impossible, Vexstar said. There's nothing in that asteroid field except human mining operations. Check your sensors. Sir, the readings are off the scale. Whatever it is, it's 3 times larger than our flagship and drawing more power than our entire fleet combined. Vexstar was about to order another sensor sweep when space itself began to shimmer in front of his fleet. Reality seemed to bend and twist like water, and then something impossible appeared. A ship materialized out of nothing. It was enormous, easily the size of a small moon. Its hull was dark gray and covered with weapons that Vexstar had never seen before. Along its sides, he could see hangar bays that looked large enough to hold his entire fleet. By the void, his tactical officer whispered, Commander, that ship is massive. Our sensors can't even get a complete reading on it. Vexstar stared at the impossible vessel. Where did it come from? How did it hide from our scanners? Unknown, sir. Our sensors show it was never there, and then suddenly it was. It's like it appeared out of thin air. The human ship hung in space between the Zephyrian fleet and Earth, completely motionless. It made no aggressive moves, but its presence was more threatening than an entire armada. Vexstar had never seen anything like it. Sir, his communications officer said nervously, we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel. Put it on screen. A human male appeared, older than the woman from before, with gray hair and steady eyes that seemed to look right through Vexstar. He wore a dark blue uniform with insignia that meant nothing to the Zephyrian commander. I am Admiral Jake Morrison, of the Earth Defense Force, the human said in a calm voice. You are Fleet Commander Vexstar, I assume? How do you know my name? Vexstar demanded. We know a lot of things, Commander. For instance, we know that your empire has a habit of attacking worlds they consider defenseless. Well, I'm here to tell. You that Earth is not defenseless. It never was. Vextar tried to regain his composure. One ship, even a large one, cannot stand against 200 Zephyrian warships. You are outnumbered and outgunned. Admiral Morrison smiled slightly. Am I? Let me show you something. The space around the massive human ship began to shimmer. Again, one by one, 3 more enormous vessels appeared, each one as large as the first. They took positions around the Zephyrian fleet, completely surrounding them. 4 ships, Vextar said, though his voice was less confident now. Still not enough. You're right, Admiral Morrison agreed. 4 ships wouldn't be enough to fight 200 Zephyrian vessels. But we're not planning to fight all of you. We're planning to give you a demonstration. Suddenly, the space around the human ships came alive with activity. Thousands of small craft poured out of the hangar bays, moving in patterns that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. They were fast, faster than anything Vextar had ever seen, and they moved with precision that made his own pilots look clumsy. Sir, his tactical officer said urgently, those fighters are moving at impossible speeds. Our targeting systems can't lock onto them. How many? Vextar asked. At least 5,000, sir. And they're all armed with weapons we don't recognize. Admiral Morrison's voice came through the communication system again. Commander Vextar, I'm going to make you an offer. Take your fleet and leave our system now, and no one has to get hurt. Stay, and we'll show you exactly what human military technology can do. Vextar felt his pride flare up. No human had ever spoken to a Zephyrian fleet commander like this. You think you can intimidate me with some fancy ships and fast fighters? We have conquered 12 worlds, human. Your people will be number 13. I was hoping you'd say that, Admiral Morrison replied. All units, this is Admiral Morrison. Demonstration protocol is now in effect. Show them what we can do. The human fighters suddenly changed direction, moving in perfect formation toward the Zephyrian fleet. They didn't fire weapons or make any threatening moves, but their speed and coordination were unlike anything Vextar had ever seen. Sir, his pilot said, they're flying right through our formation. Our ships can't turn fast enough to track them. Vextar watched in amazement as the tiny human fighters wove between his massive warships like they were standing still. They performed maneuvers that should have torn their pilots apart, but they made it look effortless. They're showing off, he realized. They could have attacked us, but they're just proving they can fly circles around us. The demonstration lasted exactly 60 seconds. Then all 5,000 fighters returned to their carriers in perfect formation. Having proven that they could go anywhere in the Zephyrian fleet formation without being stopped, Admiral Morrison appeared on screen again. Now that you've seen what our fighters can do, let me show you our defensive systems. Please, fire your weapons at my ship. What? Vextar couldn't believe what he was hearing. Fire your most powerful weapons at the Leviathan. I want you to. See what happens. Vextar looked at his tactical officer, who shrugged. Sir, if they want us to shoot at them, maybe we should. It might be our only chance to damage their ship. Very well. All ships, target the human flagship. Full power plasma barrage on my command. Vextar paused for a moment, then shouted, Fire! 200 Zephyrian warships opened fire at once. The space between the fleets lit up with brilliant green plasma beams, all focused on the massive human vessel. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The plasma beams struck the human ship and simply vanished. They didn't explode or bounce off or create any visible effect. They just disappeared as if they had never existed. Impossible, Vextar breathed. Our sensors show the energy hit their ship, but there's no damage. No explosion. Nothing. Admiral. Morrison appeared on screen again, completely calm. Thank you for the demonstration, Commander. Our barrier systems absorbed your attack and converted the energy for our own use. You just recharged our power systems." Vexstar felt something he had never experienced before in battle: fear. These humans had technology that made his fleet look like children playing with toys. "Now," Admiral Morrison continued, "I'm going to give you one more chance to leave our system peacefully. If you choose to stay and fight, the next demonstration will be considerably more destructive." "What's it going to be, Commander?" Vexstar looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all staring at him, waiting for orders. He was the commander of the most powerful fleet in Zephyrian history, but he had never faced anything like this. For the first time in his military career, Fleet Commander Vexstar had no idea what to do. Fleet Commander Vexstar stared at the 4 massive human ships surrounding his fleet. His hands were shaking slightly, though he tried to hide it from his crew. In 30 years of military service, he had never encountered anything like this. "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "what are your orders?" Vexstar knew he should order a retreat. Any reasonable commander would withdraw when faced with unknown technology. But the Zephyrian Empire had never retreated from a battle with an inferior species. His career, his honor, and his people's reputation were all on the line. "Tactical analysis," he ordered. "What do we actually know about these human ships?" His science officer checked his instruments. "Sir, our sensors are having difficulty getting clear readings. The ships appear to be using some kind of interference field. What we can tell is that they're much larger than any known vessel design, and their power output is beyond our measurement scale. Weapons? Unknown. We can see what appear to be weapon ports, but we have no data on their capabilities." Vexstar made his decision. All ships, battle formation. If the humans want to fight, we'll give them one they won't forget. On the screen, Admiral Morrison shook his head sadly. "I was hoping you'd make the smart choice, Commander. Very well. Consider this your education in human military doctrine." The transmission ended, and Vexstar immediately began issuing orders. "All vessels spread out and surround the largest human ship. Coordinated plasma barrage from all angles. They can't have barriers covering every direction." The Zephyrian fleet moved into attack formation, their ships spreading out in a sphere around the human flagship. It was a standard tactic that had worked against every enemy they had ever faced. "Sir," the tactical officer reported, "all ships are in position and ready to fire. Execute attack pattern 7. Full power to all weapons." 200 Zephyrian warships opened fire simultaneously from every direction. The space around the human flagship filled with brilliant green energy as plasma beams converged on the target from all angles. For a moment, Vexstar thought they might actually succeed. Then the impossible happened again. Every single plasma beam struck the human ship and vanished, absorbed completely by their barrier system. "No effect, sir," the tactical officer reported. "Their defenses are holding." Admiral Morrison's voice came over the communication system again, but this time he was speaking to his own crew. "All right, people. The aliens have made their choice. Time to show them what we can do. Captain Rodriguez, begin the demonstration." The human flagship began to move, and Vexstar was shocked by its speed. Something that large should have been slow and clumsy, but it moved with the grace of a fighter. Craft. The massive ship spun in place, bringing its weapon systems to bear on the Zephyrian fleet. "Incoming weapons fire." The tactical officer shouted dot, but the humans weren't firing energy weapons. Instead, streams of what looked like small metal projectiles launched from the human ship. They were moving incredibly fast, faster than anything Vexstar had ever seen. "Evasive maneuvers," he ordered, but it was too late. The projectiles struck the Zephyrian ships with devastating effect. Unlike energy weapons, these physical projectiles punched right through their shields as if they weren't there. The metal pieces moving at near light speed tore through armor and hull plating like paper. Within seconds, 20 Zephyrian ships were crippled or destroyed. The humans had achieved more damage with one attack than most enemies managed in entire battles. "Sir," the tactical officer yelled, "those aren't energy weapons. They're firing solid projectiles at incredible velocity. Our shields are designed to deflect energy, not physical matter moving that fast." Vexstar watched in horror as more of his ships were destroyed. The humans were systematically picking apart his fleet with surgical precision. They weren't just winning, they were demonstrating complete superiority. All ships, evasive maneuvers, random patterns. Don't let them target you. But the human weapons seemed to predict where his ships would go. No matter how his pilots maneuvered, the projectiles found their targets. It was like fighting an enemy that could see the future. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we're receiving a transmission from the human fighters." "Put it through." A human woman appeared on screen, younger than Admiral Morrison, but with the same confident bearing. She was sitting in what looked like a fighter cockpit, but her craft was moving at speeds that should have crushed any living being. "This is Commander Kate Sullivan of the 1st Fighter Wing, Fleet Commander Vexstar. I'm going to give you a demonstration of human fighter tactics." Suddenly, the space around the Zephyrian fleet filled with human fighters. They moved in patterns that seemed to ignore physics, making turns and accelerations that should have been impossible. But more importantly, they were coordinating their attacks with perfect precision. "Sir," the tactical officer said, "our pilots can't keep up with them. They're too fast and too coordinated. It's like they're all controlled by the same mind." Vexstar watched as the human fighters wove through his fleet formation, disabling ships with pinpoint accuracy. They weren't trying to destroy his vessels. He realized they were showing him that they could disable any ship in his fleet without breaking a sweat. "How are they doing this?" he asked. His science officer was frantically checking his instruments. "Sir, I'm detecting some kind of quantum communication network. All the human ships and fighters are connected instantaneously. When one unit acquires a target, every other unit knows about it immediately." "That's impossible. Quantum communication requires massive power generators." "Sir, each of those fighters appears to have a quantum communicator. They're sharing tactical data faster than light speed." Vexstar was beginning to understand the scope of human technology. These weren't just better weapons or faster ships. The humans had completely revolutionized space warfare. "Sir," his tactical officer said urgently, "the human flagship is moving toward us." Vexstar looked at his main screen. The enormous human ship was approaching his flagship slowly, like a predator stalking its prey. As it got closer, he could see details of its construction. The ship was covered with weapons he didn't recognize, and armor that looked like it could withstand anything. Admiral Morrison appeared on screen again. "Commander Vexstar, I'm going to make you an offer. Surrender now, and I'll spare the rest of your fleet. Continue fighting, and I'll be forced to demonstrate some of our more destructive capabilities." "What do you want?" Vexstar asked. "I want you to carry a message back to your empire. Tell them that Earth is under the protection of the Human Defense Force. Any future attacks on our world or our people will be met with overwhelming force." Vexstar looked around his bridge. Half his fleet was already disabled or destroyed, and the humans had barely begun to fight. His remaining ships were no match for the alien technology surrounding them. But before he could respond, something incredible happened. The human flagship launched what looked like boarding pods, but they were moving too fast to be intercepted. They attached themselves to his ship with magnetic clamps, and within seconds, armed figures were cutting through his hull. Boarding parties. His security chief shouted, "All hands repel boarders." Vexstar drew his sidearm and headed for the nearest breach point. If the humans wanted to take his ship, they would have to fight for it. But when he arrived at the breach, he stopped in amazement. The human soldiers weren't just carrying advanced weapons. They were wearing armor that made them faster and stronger than any Zephyrian warrior. One human soldier was holding off 6 of his best fighters without breaking a sweat. "Stand down," the human soldier said, his voice amplified by his armor. "We're not here to kill anyone. We just want to talk to your commander." Vexstar stepped forward, his weapon raised. "I am Fleet Commander Vexstar." The human soldier lowered his weapon and removed his helmet, revealing a young man with dark hair and calm eyes. "Commander, I'm Lieutenant Dan Parker. Admiral Morrison wants to speak with you in person. Will you come with us peacefully?" Vexstar looked at his surrounded security team. The human soldiers had taken control of his ship without firing a single shot. They were clearly superior in every way. "I'll come," he said, lowering his weapon. 10 minutes later, Vexstar found himself standing on the bridge of the human flagship. The Leviathan was even more impressive from the inside. The technology was decades ahead of anything the Zephyrian Empire possessed. Admiral Morrison was waiting for him, along with several other human officers. They were all calm and professional, treating him with respect despite having just defeated his entire fleet. "Commander Vexstar," Admiral Morrison said, "I want you to understand something. We didn't reveal our capabilities because we wanted to conquer anyone. We revealed them because we're tired of being threatened by species who think we're weak." "Your technology is incredible," Vexstar admitted. "Where did you develop such advanced systems?" "We've been working on them for 15 years, ever since we joined the galactic community. We learned that in this galaxy, strength is the only thing that matters. So we built strength." Admiral Morrison gestured to the main screen, which showed the disabled Zephyrian fleet. "Your ships will be repaired and returned to you. Your wounded will be treated with our medical technology. And you will be free to return to your empire with a message." "What message?" "That." The news of humanity's victory over the Zephyrian fleet spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within days, every major government, military organization, and news service knew about Earth's secret supercarriers, and they're incredible. Technology. Ambassador Laura White sat in her office at the Galactic Council headquarters, watching the chaos unfold. Through her window, she could see crowds of aliens gathering in the plaza below, all talking excitedly about the humans who had appeared from nowhere to defeat one of the galaxy's most powerful fleets. Her assistant, a young diplomat named Carl Johnson, knocked on her door. "Ambassador, the Council has called an emergency session. Every member species wants to know how Earth developed such advanced technology without anyone noticing." Lavra nodded. She had been expecting this. "When do they want to meet?" "In 2 hours. Mom, there are already over 100 representatives demanding answers. Some of them are pretty angry." Lavra wasn't surprised. For years, the galactic community had treated humanity as a minor species, barely worth attention. Now they were learning that Earth had been hiding military technology that made their own forces look primitive. "Have we heard anything from Admiral Morrison?" she asked. Carl checked his data pad. "The Leviathan is still in Earth orbit, along with the other 3 supercarriers. The Admiral says he's ready to provide any information you need for the Council meeting." "Good. I'm going to need all the help I can get." 2 hours later, Laura walked into the main council chamber. The massive room was packed with representatives from hundreds of species, all talking at once. The noise was incredible, with dozens of different languages and communication methods creating a chaotic symphony. Chancellor Mordak, the current head of the council, called for order. He was a tall, thin alien with gray skin and large eyes, representing the Altarian people who had founded the galactic government centuries ago. "The Council will come to order," he announced. "We are here to discuss the recent events involving the human species and their previously unknown military capabilities." Ambassador Lavra White stood up. "Chancellor, with your permission, I would like to address the Council's concerns." "Permission granted, Ambassador." "The Council is very interested in hearing Earth's explanation." Lavra walked to the center of the chamber, where a speaking platform allowed her to address all the representatives at once. She looked around at the hundreds of alien faces staring at her, some curious, some angry, some afraid. "Members of the Galactic Council," she began, "I understand your surprise at recent events. Many of you are wondering how humanity developed advanced military technology without your knowledge. The answer is simple. We never stopped learning." A representative from the Carvani hegemony, a species known for their aggressive military policies, stood up. "Ambassador White, your species was granted membership in this council based on your declared technological level. You claim to have only basic space travel and simple weapons. Were you lying to us?" Lavra had expected this question. "Representative Corthan, we never lied about our capabilities. When Earth joined the galactic community, we truly did have only basic technology. But we also had something that many species seem to have forgotten: the drive to improve." "What do you mean?" asked another representative. "For 15 years, we observed and learned from every species we encountered. We studied your technologies, your methods, your strengths and weaknesses. Then we applied human creativity and engineering to develop something new." Chancellor Mordak leaned forward. "Are you saying that human technology is based on stolen alien designs?" "Not stolen," Lavra replied firmly. "Learned from. Every species in this council shares their basic knowledge freely. We simply took that knowledge and improved upon it in ways that others hadn't considered." A representative from the peaceful vegan republic raised her hand. "Ambassador, can you give us specific examples?" Lavra activated a holographic display. "Our adaptive camouflage system was inspired by studying cuttlefish from our own planet. Combined with light-bending technology we learned from the Centaurian delegation. Our kinetic weapons came from observing how meteor impacts work, enhanced with magnetic acceleration principles shared by the Rigelian engineers." The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs. Many representatives were realizing that their own shared knowledge had been used to create human military superiority. "But the crucial element," Lavra continued, "was human innovation. We didn't just copy existing technology. We asked questions that others hadn't thought to ask. What if shields could absorb energy instead of deflecting it? What if solid projectiles could be more effective than energy weapons? What if ships could coordinate their actions instantaneously across vast distances?" Representative Corthan from the Corvani looked angry. "You used our own knowledge against us. You turned our openness into a weapon." "No," Lavra said firmly. "We turned shared knowledge into protection. Earth never intended to attack anyone. We developed these capabilities because we recognized that in this galaxy, peaceful species are often targets for aggressive ones." Chancellor Mordak asked the question Lavra had been dreading. "Ambassador, how many other human vessels exist? What is the true extent of Earth's military power?" Lavra took a deep breath. This was the moment of truth. "Chancellor, I am authorized to share complete information about Earth's defensive capabilities with this council." She activated another holographic display, showing the locations of all human military assets. Earth currently operates 4 supercarriers, each one comparable to the vessels you saw at the Zephyrian conflict. We have also constructed 12 smaller cruisers and over 300 advanced fighters. All of these vessels are equipped with the technology demonstrated against the Zephyrian fleet. The chamber fell silent. Even the aggressive Corvani representative looked impressed by the scale of human military construction. However, Lavra continued, I want to make one thing absolutely clear. These vessels exist solely for defensive purposes. Earth has no intention of using them for conquest or aggression. An elderly representative from the Andromedan Collective stood up slowly. Ambassador White, your words are reassuring, but actions speak louder than words. How can we be certain that humanity won't use this technology to dominate other species? Lavra had been preparing for this question for years. Counselor Zenoro, I understand your concern. That's why Earth is prepared to make a formal proposal. To this council, she activated a new display showing a detailed document. Earth proposes the creation of a new galactic organization, one focused on mutual defense rather than conquest. Any species that wishes to join would be protected by our combined forces, and in return, they would contribute to the common defense. Representative Corthan laughed harshly. You want us to join a human-led military alliance? This sounds like conquest with extra steps. Not human-led, Lara corrected. Jointly led. Every member species would have equal say in how the alliance operates. Earth would contribute our military technology, but decisions would be made democratically. Chancellor Mordek looked thoughtful. This is an interesting proposal, Ambassador, but it raises many questions. What about species that choose not to join? They would be left alone, as long as they don't threaten alliance members. We're not interested in forcing anyone to join. We're offering protection to those who want it. The debate continued for hours. Some representatives were intrigued by the possibility of protection from aggressive species. Others worried about human dominance. A few, particularly from military-focused cultures, saw Earth as a threat that needed to be eliminated. During a recess, Lover received an urgent message from Admiral Morrison. She stepped outside the chamber to take the call privately. Ambassador, the Admiral's face appeared on her communicator. We've got a problem. Our deep space sensors are picking up unusual fleet movements. Several major military powers are gathering. Ships in the outer systems. Which ones? Lavra asked. The Corvani Hegemony, the Draconian Empire, the Stellar Confederation, and at least 8 others. They're trying to be subtle about it, but it looks like they're forming some kind of alliance. Lavra felt her heart sink. How many ships? Conservative estimate? Over 1,000 vessels. If they're planning what I think they're planning, this could be the largest space battle in galactic history. How long do we have? Based on their movements, maybe 2 weeks before they're in position to strike. Ambassador, I don't think they're planning to negotiate. Lavra closed her eyes for a moment. Admiral, what are our chances if they attack? Against 1,000 ships? Even with our technology, those aren't good odds. We need allies, and we need them fast. When Lara returned to the council chamber, she could see that news of the fleet movements was already spreading. Representatives were checking their data pads and whispering urgently to each other. Chancellor Mordak called for order. It appears that certain council members have been informed of military activities in the outer systems. Ambassador White, does Earth have any comment on these developments? Lavra stood up, knowing that her next words would shape the future of the galaxy. Chancellor, Earth is aware that several military powers are gathering forces. We believe they intend to attack. Our world before our defensive alliance can be fully established. And how does Earth intend to respond? Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Leviathan, watching the largest fleet in galactic history approach Earth. His tactical display showed over 1,000 enemy ships spread across a front that stretched for millions of kilometers. Leading them was Supreme Marshal Cathfor of the Corvani Hegemony, commanding the combined forces of 12 major military powers. Admiral, Captain Rodriguez reported, all Allied vessels are in position. We have ships from 47 different species ready for battle. Jake nodded, though he was still amazed by what they had accomplished in just 1 week. The Allied fleet was smaller than the enemy force, but it represented something unprecedented in galactic history. Dozens of species working together for mutual defense. "What's our final count?" he asked. 600 Allied vessels, sir. Plus our 4 supercarriers and their fighter complements. Dr. Thompson reports that all systems are operating at peak efficiency. Jake looked at the tactical display again. The enemy fleet was impressive, but he could see weaknesses in their formation. 12 different military doctrines trying to work together would create communication problems and tactical conflicts. "Commander Sullivan, how are our fighter squadrons?" Kate Sullivan turned from her station. "All pilots are ready, Admiral. We've been training with our new allies for the past week. The coordination is better than I expected." "Good. Captain Rodriguez, open a channel to all Allied vessels." Within seconds, Jake was connected to captains and commanders from dozens of different species. The communication screen showed a variety of alien faces, all united in their determination to defend Earth. "Allied commanders," Jake began, "today we fight not just for Earth, but for the principle that cooperation is stronger than conquest. Our enemy believes that might makes right. We're going to prove them wrong." A voice came from one of the Allied captains, a reptilian creature from the Draconian Republic. "Admiral Morrison, my ships are honored to fight alongside humanity. The Corvani destroyed our colony worlds 50 years ago. Today, we get our revenge." Similar voices came from other Allied captains, each with their own reason for opposing the aggressive alliance. Jake realized that this battle was about more than just Earth's survival. It was about changing how the galaxy worked. "All right, people," Jake said, "here's how we're going to do this. The enemy expects us to fight like individual fleets. Instead, we're going to fight as one coordinated force. Dr. Thompson, activate the quantum communication network." Across the Allied fleet, every ship suddenly found itself connected to every other ship through instantaneous communication. For the first time in galactic history, hundreds of vessels from dozens of species could coordinate their actions perfectly. "By the void," breathed one of the Allied captains. "I can see what every other ship is doing in real time." "This is incredible," Jake smiled. "Welcome to human military doctrine, Captain. Now let's show them what we can do together." The enemy fleet opened fire first, thousands of energy weapons lighting up space with deadly plasma beams. But the Allied fleet was ready. Using their quantum communication network, they moved as one entity, coordinating their defensive actions with perfect precision. "All ships evasive pattern Delta," Jake ordered, and 600 ships moved in perfect synchronization, like a giant organism avoiding a predator's attack. The enemy weapons mostly missed their targets, hitting empty space where the Allied ships had been moments before. Those few hits that connected were absorbed by human barrier technology, which had been shared with key Allied vessels. "Their turn," Jake said calmly. "All Allied vessels, fire when ready." The counterattack was devastating. Each Allied ship used its species' unique weapons technology, but they were all coordinated through the quantum network. Energy beams, kinetic projectiles, gravitational weapons, and exotic matter disruptors all struck the enemy fleet simultaneously. Supreme Marshal Kethver, commanding from his flagship the Iron Fist, watched in shock as his carefully planned battle formation was torn apart by the coordinated attack. How are they doing this? 12 different species can't coordinate like this. His tactical officer was frantically checking his instruments. "Sir, they're using some kind of instantaneous communication system. Every Allied ship knows what every other Allied ship is doing." "That's impossible," Kethver snarled. "Instantaneous communication across space violates the basic laws of physics. Sir, the humans have apparently found a way around those laws." "Kethver, watched as more of his ships were destroyed or disabled. The Allied fleet was smaller than his force, but they were fighting with perfect coordination, while his own ships were struggling to communicate across 12 different command structures. "All units, focus fire on the human supercarriers," he ordered. "If we can destroy their command ships, their coordination will collapse." But Jake had anticipated this strategy. "Commander Sullivan, launch all fighters. It's time for the big show." The space around the 4 human supercarriers suddenly filled with thousands of small craft. But these weren't just human fighters. Mixed in with them were fighters from every allied species, all coordinated through the quantum network. The result was the most complex and deadly fighter engagement in galactic history. Human fighters, with their impossible speed and maneuverability, allied formations that included everything from heavily armored Andromedan bombers to tiny vegan interceptors that could slip through any defense. "Sir," Kethfer as pilot reported, "our fighters can't keep up with them. They're coordinating attacks across the entire battle space. It's like fighting a single opponent with 10,000 bodies." Kethfer was beginning to understand the scope of what the humans had accomplished. They hadn't just built better ships or weapons. They had revolutionized space warfare itself. "Sir," his communications officer said urgently, "we're receiving a transmission from the human admiral." Jake Morrison appeared on Kethfer's screen, looking calm despite the massive battle raging around them. "Supreme Marshal Kethfer, I'm going to give you one chance to end this without further bloodshed." "Never," Kethfer replied. "The Korvani do not surrender to inferior species." "Take a look at your tactical display, Marshal. How many ships have you lost?" Kethfer glanced at his screen and felt his confidence waver. In just 20 minutes of fighting, he had lost over 300 ships, while the Allied fleet had lost fewer than 50. The humans and their allies weren't just winning, they were dominating. "Your coordination is impressive," Kethfer admitted, "but we still outnumber you." "We can win through sheer force." "Maybe," Jake agreed, "but at what cost? You'll lose most of your fleet. And for what? To destroy one planet? Is that really worth the lives of your soldiers?" Kethfer looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all staring at him, waiting for orders. Many of them looked afraid, something he had never seen before in Korvani warriors. "What do you propose?" he asked. "Withdraw your forces, and we'll let you go. No pursuit, no retaliation. But this is your only chance. If you continue fighting, I'll be forced to demonstrate some of our more destructive capabilities." Kethfer was about to respond when something incredible happened. 3 more massive ships appeared in the battle space, decloaking near the Allied fleet. They were even larger than the existing human supercarriers, and their design was unlike anything he had ever seen. "Those are construction ships," Jake explained. "We've been building them in secret for the past 5 years. Each one can manufacture new vessels and weapons in real time. If this battle continues, we can replace our losses faster than you can inflict them." Kethfer stared at the impossible vessels. The humans had not only hidden their military fleet, they had hidden their industrial capacity as well. They could potentially build an entire new fleet while the battle was still going on. "Marshal," his science officer said quietly, "our analysts estimate that the human industrial capacity is at least 10 times larger than we thought. If they can build ships during combat, we can't win a prolonged engagement." Kethfer closed his eyes for a moment. He was the supreme marshal of the most powerful military alliance in the galaxy, but he was facing an enemy that seemed to have thought of everything. "Admiral Morrison," he said finally, "what guarantees do we have that you won't use this technology to conquer other worlds?" "You have my word," Jake replied simply. "Earth has no interest in conquest. We just want to be left alone to live our lives in peace. And the other species in your alliance? They want the same thing. Protection from aggressive powers like yours. Kethfer looked at his tactical display one more time. His fleet was being steadily destroyed, while the enemy losses remained minimal. Continuing the battle would only result in the total destruction of his forces. All units, he said heavily, cease fire and withdraw to the outer system. Across the battle space, the largest fleet in galactic history began to retreat. As they withdrew, the human construction ships began repairing damaged Allied vessels. Demonstrating yet another impossible capability, Jake opened a communication channel to all the Allied ships. Congratulations, everyone. Today we proved that cooperation is stronger than conquest. This is the beginning of a new age for the galaxy. Ambassador Laura White, who had been watching the battle from Earth, smiled as she said the message to the Galactic Council. The age of aggressive expansion was over. The age